The security drone hovered 3 meters from Commander Vex's face, its targeting matrix cycling through threat assessment protocols faster than most species could blink. Vex, representative of the Kaltorian Defense Initiative and current overseer of Detention Block 7, felt his twin hearts skip in what he'd later describe as professional concern. The human female designated prisoner 80047, real name Mara Quinn, stood in the center of the holding cell with her arms crossed, looking about as impressed as someone waiting for a particularly slow elevator. Subject has violated Containment Protocol 17.3, the drone announced in that flat, emotionless tone that all automated systems seem to share across the galaxy. Preparing incapacitation sequence. Vex's mandibles clicked together nervously. He'd been briefed, of course. Every detention officer in this sector had received the updated files after the incident on Station Proxima. Humans were classified as Category 4 biological threats, which put them somewhere between Velker berserkers and those terrifying fungal colonies from the outer reaches. But looking at Quinn now, barefoot in her grey detention suit, her dark hair pulled back in what humans called a ponytail, she didn't look particularly threatening. She looked bored. The drone's charging coil hummed, building energy for a stun bolt powerful enough to drop a Kronar bull in its tracks. Vex had seen those things work. The electromagnetic pulse would disrupt neural pathways, causing immediate unconsciousness and temporary paralysis. It was considered humane across 97% of known civilizations. Quinn yawned. Firing in 3 seconds, the drone stated. 2, 1. The bolt discharged with a crack that made Vex flinch. Blue-white energy screamed across the cell, moving at roughly 800 meters per second. In the time it took Vex to process what was happening, Quinn had already moved. Except she hadn't really moved. Not the way Vex understood movement. She'd tilted her head, just tilted it. Slightly to the left, maybe 15 degrees, with the casual grace of someone dodging a particularly lazy insect. The stun bolt, which should have struck her directly in the chest, sailed past her ear close enough that Vex could see her hair flutter in its wake. It impacted the rear wall with a shower of sparks. Quinn straightened her head, locked eyes with the drone and smiled. "Oh," she said, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. "That was your fastest." Vex felt his respiratory system forget how to function. The drone, to its credit, recalculated immediately. Anomalous response detected. Increasing charge to maximum output. Firing. This time it didn't announce a countdown. The bolt simply erupted from the weapon array, faster and brighter than before. Quinn leaned backward, arching her spine in a way that should have been anatomically impossible, and the energy discharge passed over her like she was playing some sort of recreational game. She completed the motion, rising back to standing, and actually laughed. "Oh, you're really trying now," she said. "That's adorable." The drone fired again, and again. Quinn moved through the barrage like water flowing around stones. Each motion minimal, efficient, almost lazy. She ducked under one bolt, sidestepped another, jumped straight up to let a third pass beneath her feet, and then what Vex would later swear was the most ridiculous thing he'd ever witnessed. She caught the fourth bolt between her hands, held it for a moment while it crackled and sparked, and casually tossed it at the ceiling where it dissipated harmlessly. "Okay," Vex said into his communicator, his voice climbing several octaves higher than he'd intended. "We have a situation in Block 7. I need backup. Actually, cancel that. I need the whole response team, and maybe a priest. Do humans have priests? Someone find out if humans have priests." Quinn turned to face him through the transparent containment barrier, still smiling. "You know what your problem is, Vex?" He hadn't told her his name. The prisoner manifest listed him only as Detention Officer Primary. How did she know his name? "Your problem," Quinn continued, apparently not needing an answer, "is that you keep thinking of humans as just another species. You run us through your standard protocols, your standard threat assessments, your standard everything, and then you act all surprised when the standards don't apply." The drone, having exhausted its stunning arsenal, switched tactics. A compartment opened in its chassis, revealing a neural disruptor, the kind of weapon typically reserved for extreme situations. Vex felt his stomach, or the Kaltorian equivalent, drop somewhere into his lower abdomen. "Stop," he commanded the drone. "Stand down immediately. Protocol requires escalation when standard measures fail," the drone replied. "Subject presents clear and immediate danger. The only immediate danger is you shooting a weapon that'll liquefy her brain," Vex snapped. "Stand down or I'll override your entire consciousness matrix and turn you into a very expensive paperweight." The drone hesitated, circuits warring with programming. In that moment of mechanical indecision, Quinn spoke again. "You don't want to do that," she said, addressing the drone directly. "You really don't want to do that. Threat assessment indicates 68% probability of successful incapacitation," the drone calculated. "Threat assessment is wrong," Quinn said simply. "See, here's the thing about humans that nobody ever puts in those fancy reports of yours. We're not fast because we're built fast. We're not strong because we're built strong. We're dangerous because we're built to adapt, to overcome, to survive things that should absolutely kill us and then laugh about it later over drinks." She took a step forward. The containment barrier hummed, but she placed her palm flat against it anyway. "My grandfather," she said, "fought in the terraform wars on Mars. Do you know what the survival rate was for first-wave colonists? 7%. 7? And he was in that 7%. My mother worked in deep space construction, building those fancy stations you all like to live in now. She fell 300 meters once when a gravitational stabilizer failed, broke 42 bones. She was back at work 6 months later." Another step forward. The barrier began to crack. "And me?" Quinn's smile widened. "I'm third-generation human military. I've been shot, stabbed, exposed to vacuum, hit by 3 different kinds of neurotoxin, and once, just once, I got drunk enough to arm wrestle a Thaxian. I lost that one, but only because I passed out first. My point being, the barrier shattered. Not exploded, not sparked out, just shattered, like someone had thrown a rock through a window." Quinn stepped through the opening, glass-like fragments dissolving before they could touch her skin. "My point being," she continued, walking calmly toward the drone, "that you're working with outdated information. Humans aren't Category 4 anymore. Last I checked, they'd bumped us up to Category 7. Want to know why?" The drone fired the neural disruptor. Vex closed his eyes. He didn't want to see what happened next. Didn't want to watch a living being reduced to nothing but meat and memory. But he heard it. That high-pitched whine of the disruptor activating, the crackling discharge of energy, and then silence. He opened his eyes. Quinn stood there, one hand outstretched, the neural disruptor's beam terminating against her palm like water hitting a wall. Her hand glowed, a faint blue shimmer that seemed to absorb the energy rather than deflect it. "Neural disruptors work on a frequency of 0.73 gigahertz, she said. "Conversationally, they're designed to match the standard neural oscillation patterns found in 93% of sentient species. Humans, fun fact, operate on multiple frequencies simultaneously. Something about our weird brain chemistry and the way we process both conscious and unconscious thought at the same time makes us really hard to disrupt." She closed her hand. The beam winked out. The drone sparked once, twice, and then simply shut down, falling to the floor with a metallic clang. Quinn looked at Vex. "So," she said, "about my lawyer. I was told I'd get a communication window to contact my legal representation. It's been 6 cycles, and I'm starting to think you're violating about 47 different provisions of the Galactic detention accords." Vex couldn't speak. His translator must have malfunctioned, because surely she hadn't just. "Cat got your tongue?" Quinn asked. Then she laughed. "Sorry, that's a human expression. Means you're shocked. Speechless. Which, fair. That was pretty dramatic. But here's the thing, Vex, and I really need you to understand this." She walked closer to the observation window, close enough that he could see his own reflection in her eyes. "I'm not here because you caught me. I'm here because I let you catch me. There's a difference. A big one. And if you want to know why a human operative would voluntarily submit to arrest in a facility 3 systems away from any human-controlled space, well," she smiled again, but this time there was no humor in it, only cold, calculated purpose. I guess you'll have to wait and find out. Alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Emergency lights strobed red and yellow. Vex's communicator exploded with panicked voices, all reporting the same thing from different sections of the station. The containment fields were failing, all of them, simultaneously. And through the chaos, through the sirens and the shouting and the sound of 1,000 prisoners, realizing their cells were no longer locked, Quinn stood perfectly still, perfectly calm, and winked at him. "Tick-tock," she said. Somewhere in the lower decks, specifically in what the station manifest cheerfully labeled Auxiliary Storage Bay 12, but what everyone actually called the junk pile, a human named Marcus Webb finished entering the last line of code into the security mainframe access port he'd been secretly assembling from stolen parts for the past 2 months. "And done," he muttered, watching as green confirmation lights bloomed across his makeshift terminal. "Mara, you magnificent disaster, this had better be worth it." The screen flickered, displaying a message in standard Galactic script: "System override complete. All containment protocols disabled. Welcome to the party." Marcus grinned, cracked his knuckles, and reached for the plasma cutter he'd hidden under a false panel in the wall. "Time to make some noise," he said. Vex's training had covered approximately 473 emergency scenarios. Prisoner escapes, system failures, hostile boarding actions, even that one bizarre situation involving a methane leak and an unfortunate spark that nobody liked to talk about. But nowhere, absolutely nowhere in the Kaltorian Defense Initiative's comprehensive manual had anyone thought to include a chapter titled, "What to do when a human smiles at you and the entire station simultaneously falls apart." He was beginning to think that was a significant oversight. "All units, converge on Block 7. Security Chief Torvin's voice crackled through the station-wide channel. "We have a code Vermilion. Repeat, code Vermilion. This is not a drill." Code Vermilion meant catastrophic containment failure. It meant every cell door, every security barrier, every last failsafe between the station's most dangerous criminals and complete chaos had just stopped working. It meant, in technical terms that Vex's translator struggled to process through his rising panic, that everyone was completely and utterly doomed. Quinn cocked her head, listening to the alarms with the expression of someone enjoying a particularly pleasant symphony. "Code Vermilion, that's new. When I reviewed your security protocols last month, you only went up to Code Orange. Someone's been busy updating the emergency response procedures." "Last month," Vex repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. "You've been planning this for a month?" "Oh, Vex," Quinn laughed, that warm, terrifying human laugh that somehow made everything worse. "I've been planning this for 6 months. The month I spent in your database was just confirming the details. The observation window between them had been designed to withstand direct plasma fire. 40 centimeters of reinforced transparent aluminum, capable of holding back everything from kinetic strikes to chemical attacks." Quinn placed both palms against it and pushed. The window didn't shatter this time, it simply bent, warping inward like soft plastic, until there was a gap wide enough for her to step through. She did so casually, as if walking through a doorway that had always been there, and stood directly in front of Vex. Up close she was shorter than he'd expected. Humans averaged 1.7 meters, and Quinn couldn't have been more than 1.65. But standing there, with alarm lights painting her face in alternating red and shadow, she seemed to fill the entire corridor. "I'm going to give you 2 choices," she said. "Choice 1, you try to stop me. You call your response team, they come running with their fancy weapons and their tactical protocols, and we have what humans call a situation. People get hurt. Probably not me, definitely them, possibly you. It gets messy, and messy is annoying because then I have to fill out paperwork explaining why I put 17 officers in medical." She held up 2 fingers. "Choice 2, you listen to what I'm about to tell you, make a smart decision, and maybe, just maybe, we all get out of this with our various biological components intact." "Sound good?" Vex's mandibles trembled. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to fight, to do something other than stand there like a juvenile facing down a predator. but something else, some deeper survival mechanism that had kept his species alive through 3 extinction-level events and 2 galactic wars, told him that Quinn was offering him the only rational option available. "I'm listening," he managed. "Smart," Quinn nodded approvingly. 6 months ago, a transport ship called the Stellar Horizon disappeared between here and the Corward territories. 240 passengers, 60 crew, all gone without a trace. No distress signal, no debris field, nothing, just vanished. She started walking down the corridor. Vex followed, partly because she'd started talking and he needed to hear this, partly because he genuinely didn't know what else to do. 3 months ago, Quinn continued, a mining colony on Theta 7 went dark. 5,000 people, same story. No communication, no evidence. Just empty buildings and abandoned equipment. Like everyone had been plucked away mid-sentence. They passed a junction where 3 other prisoners were attempting to override a door panel. They saw Quinn, looked at each other and very deliberately decided to try a different door. Vex noted that with something between relief and absolute terror. 1 month ago, Quinn said, the pattern finally became clear. Every disappearance happened within a 6-system radius of this station, every single one. And you know what else they had in common. She stopped at an elevator bank, pressed the call button with one finger, and waited. The elevator arrived with a polite chime that seemed absurdly normal given the circumstances. They'd all made stops here, Quinn finished, stepping inside. This station, Detention Block 7, the last place anyone saw them before they disappeared into whatever void is swallowing ships and colonies like candy. Vex joined her in the elevator, watched her press the button for sub-level 3, and felt his world tilt sideways. That's impossible. We screen every vessel. Every single person who comes through here is logged, scanned, verified. Right. Quinn's smile had vanished. Which means someone with access to those logs, those scans, those verifications, is making people disappear. And whoever they are, they're good enough to cover their tracks through 7 different security systems, bypass every alarm, and leave absolutely no evidence behind. The elevator descended. Vex's mind raced, pulling up staff rosters, security clearances, access logs. If you suspected infiltration, why not contact human authorities? Why get yourself arrested? Because I tried that first, Quinn said, her voice going flat. Sent 3 reports through official channels. Know what happened? Nothing. Radio silence. Then someone sent a very polite message, suggesting I drop the investigation or face charges of espionage. Humans don't do polite threats, Vex. We do loud threats. Violent threats. Creative threats involving body parts and uncomfortable furniture. Polite means someone else wrote that message using our communication codes. The elevator stopped. The doors opened onto sub-level 3, a maintenance area that according to every schematic Vex had studied, shouldn't have existed. The station only had 2 sub-levels. He'd seen the architectural plans himself during orientation. Welcome to the part of the station nobody talks about, Quinn said, stepping out into a corridor that definitely, absolutely was not supposed to be there. The walls down here were different. Older. Not Kaltorian construction at all, but something else, built from materials Vex didn't recognize. Pipes and conduits ran along the ceiling in patterns that made no architectural sense, and the lighting came from organic-looking fixtures that pulsed with a rhythm disturbingly similar to a heartbeat. What is this place? Vex asked. This, a new voice said from deeper in the corridor, is what happens when you build a detention facility on top of a pre-existing structure without bothering to check what that structure was for. Marcus Webb emerged from the shadows, plasma cutter in one hand, a datapad in the other. He was tall for a human, maybe 1.85 meters, with close-cropped hair and the kind of casual confidence that came from either extensive military training or profound stupidity. Given he was human, Vex assumed both. Marcus, Quinn greeted, took you long enough. Hey, hacking a station-wide security grid while pretending to be an intoxicated cargo handler is harder than it looks, Marcus replied. Plus I had to stop and help some of our fellow inmates open their doors. Figured a riot would be good cover. Good thinking. Quinn turned to Vex. Commander Vex, meet Lieutenant Marcus Webb, Human Intelligence Division. Marcus, meet the poor soul who's about to learn his entire career has been a lie. Wait, Vex said, pieces clicking together in his mind. You're both military? This whole thing has been an intelligence operation. Gold star for the Kaltorian, Marcus said cheerfully. Look, normally we'd do this all official and proper. Fill out the forms, get the authorizations, maybe bring some lawyers. But people are dying. Lots of people. And every cycle we waste on bureaucracy is another cycle. Whoever's running this place has to cover their tracks and disappear even more victims. Quinn moved deeper into the corridor, running her hand along the wall. These structures are old, really old, pre-Galactic Council old. I'm talking ancient civilization, the kind that shows up in archaeological textbooks with lots of question marks. She stopped at a particular section of wall where the organic-looking material seemed to pulse faster, and someone has been using them, powering them, activating systems that were dormant for thousands of years. Want to guess what that kind of technology does? Vex didn't want to guess, didn't want to know. But his scientific curiosity, the same trait that had made him pursue detention administration instead of something sensible like agriculture, forced the question out. What does it do? It moves things, Quinn said softly. Matter transportation on a scale that makes our best teleportation technology look like a child's toy. You could move entire populations across systems without them ever knowing they'd left their beds. You could make ships disappear mid-flight, colonies vanish overnight. She pressed harder against the wall. The material responded, rippling outward from her touch, and the doorway erised open, revealing a chamber beyond that made Vex's perception of reality do several uncomfortable flips. The room was massive, extending far beyond what should have been possible given the station's dimensions. Pillars of that same organic material stretched up into darkness, each one covered in glowing symbols that cycled through colors. Vex's eyes couldn't properly process, and in the center, suspended in what looked like liquid light, were people. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands, floating unconscious in individual containment fields, their faces peaceful, unaware. The missing passengers, Vex breathed. The colony, they're all here. Not all of them, Marcus said grimly, checking his datapad. This is maybe 20% of the total disappeared. The rest are probably scattered across other facilities like this one. Whoever's running this operation is farming people, Vex. Using them for something, and your station has been the collection point. A sound echoed through the chamber, slow and rhythmic. Footsteps. Someone else was down here. Quinn's entire demeanor shifted, posture going from casual to combat-ready in a heartbeat. Marcus, get Vex somewhere safe. I'll handle this. Handle what? A familiar voice asked. Security Chief Torvin emerged from behind one of the pillars, except he moved wrong. Walked wrong, held himself with a stillness that no living being should possess. Handle me, Commander Quinn. I'm afraid you've made several tactical errors. His skin began to ripple, revealing something underneath. Something that definitely wasn't Kaltorian. Okay, Quinn said, cracking her knuckles. So we're doing this the fun way. Marcus, new plan. Get everyone out of those containment fields and start evacuation procedures. Vex, if you've got any emergency protocols that involve calling for backup from literally anywhere else in the galaxy, now would be great. The thing wearing Torvin's face smiled, showing far too many teeth arranged in far too many rows. You cannot stop what has already begun. The harvest continues. It has always continued. Your species are simply resources waiting to be collected. Yeah, see, that's where you and I have a fundamental disagreement, Quinn said, and her hands began to glow that same blue shimmer from earlier. Humans don't get harvested, we do the harvesting, it's kind of our thing. She moved, faster than Vex's eyes could track, closing the distance to the knot Torvin in a fraction of a second. Her fist connected with its face, and the impact sent a shockwave through the chamber that shattered 3 of the nearby containment fields. Also, she added, as the creature staggered backward, you really shouldn't have threatened people on my watch. That makes me cranky. The creature roared, its body expanding, transforming into something large and very definitely hostile, Marcus grabbed Vex's arm, hauling him toward the nearest control panel. "Time to learn how this tech works," Marcus said. "Fast education. On-the-job training. You're about to become an expert in ancient alien systems or die trying, possibly both. No pressure." Behind them, Quinn and the creature that had been Torvin collided again, energy and rage filling the chamber with light and sound, and Vex, who had started his shift thinking the biggest challenge would be managing meal schedules and recreation times, found himself at the controls of technology that could reshape the fate of entire civilizations. "Just once," he muttered, fingers flying across the alien interface. "I would like a normal day at work." Above them, the station shook as more security systems failed, as more prisoners escaped, as chaos spread through every level. But down here in this impossible chamber, three very different beings worked frantically to save thousands of lives and expose a threat that had been hiding in plain sight for longer than anyone wanted to calculate. The harvest was ending. One way or another, it was ending tonight.